When I was a teenager in the 1990s, my friend handed me his Philips portable CD player and a pair of JVC headphones and said, "Listen to this." I put the headphones in, he hits play. It was this beautiful song that started with some nice lyrics. I am the heaven, I am the water. It had this beautiful vocal part. I loved the singer's voice, had beefy, full synth bass and plucky guitars. Just pure heavenly magic, wonderful music. And then this shocking, ugly sounding German singer comes on, and I started wincing.
Ich bin der Dreck unter deinen Waldsteinen.
Whip it on me, huh?
My friend starts laughing and he goes, "That's called sofa number 2. At the end, the lyrics are, I am here and you are my sofa. Isn't that great?" I laughed and he told me to listen to the whole album, which I did, and I was in a total trance. Inca Roads just blew my mind right off the bat. Can't Afford No Shoes and Florentine Pogan, great songs. They weren't totally my jam in the 1990s, but I especially loved Andy and Pajama People. Now, of course, being an immature teenager in high school, I could not get over Evelyn, a Modified Dog. I listened to that over and over. In fact, I think I used that song's lyrics for a poetry assignment I had shortly after. Now, I was already familiar with a couple of Zappa's albums like Freak Out, We're Only in It for the Money, Hot Rats, and Burnt Weenie Sandwich, but this was a different side of Zappa than I'd ever heard. Of course, there were elements of all those songs and albums in One Size Fits All, but it didn't sound like the same guy to me. This album had this new sound and approach to music. Now, I didn't have much money as a teenager, so I bought the CD through one of those BMG music deals where it was like 10 CDs for $18 or something. And I took the CD to school like every day for over a year. In fact, here is my crushed and devastated CD case. You can see it's shattered in half. It's missing, a bunch of it. And I've had this for about 30 years now. Whereas my CD is 3 decades old, this album is turning 50 years old this year. So I thought I'd take a little bit of time to reflect on its genius and influence with just a little bit of my own commentary, and closing with an interview with Zappa Vaultmeister Joe Travers. Okay, so first of all, Inca Roads is an incredible composition, and the guitar solo is just unbelievable. As Steve Vai writes in this guitar transcription book in the foreword, right in the beginning of the book, Inca Roads is simply an unprecedented masterpiece. How can I even attempt to write of its beauty? Did a booger bear come from somewhere out there, sung in Munchkin vocals in a steamy 11/8 time signature? It gave me a new reason to live. Now, Inca Roads was recorded live, with the main tracks recorded during a TV special, and the guitar solo recorded separately during a 1974 show in Helsinki, Finland. And Zappa seamlessly transitions from the TV recording to the Helsinki recording and back without any discernible gaps in between. It's a brilliant bit of studio engineering, and I think it just floored everyone in the 1970s. This was the start of a practice that Frank would start doing on a lot of his recordings. Steve called this guitar solo immortal in the world of memorable guitar solos, and the closest thing to the voice of God that has ever been put to music. Now, I probably don't love that solo as much as Steve does, but I do love it, and I quoted most of it in a song I recorded with my father on his album Ahab. And hardly anyone has noticed. Now, if you don't have this transcription book, I 100% recommend getting it. It's great to just follow along with the music and see what's going on. It'll give you a whole new appreciation for this music, especially with songs like Inca Roads. You put it on and just flip through the, pages and see what's going on. This book makes me participate in the album when I listen to it. Also, try singing the song Inca Roads. I don't know how George Duke and Napoleon Murphy Brock pulled it off. It's a feat on its own, and that whole Booger Bear section is totally crazy. I mean, look at the time signatures. So 11/16, 8/16, 11/16, 6/16, 15/16, 7/16, 5/4, 4/4, 2/4, 11/16, 5/16, 7/8, back to 4/4. Like, are you kidding me with this? There are so many layers on this album, too. It's a very dense musical listen. The transcription book says on Florentine Pogan, guitars 2, 3, 6, and 8 tacit, which means like don't play. And it notates up to 12 different guitar parts. There is so much to listen to on this album. I was just listening to it in preparation for this video, and I heard guitar and marimba parts that I never even noticed before, and I didn't even have the new mixes. Now, I've been carefully listening to this album for 30 years, and there's still stuff that I'm hearing that my ears never picked up. There's also a great new live recording of it on this new Cheaper Than Cheep set that you should totally check out. It has 2 audio CDs and a Blu-ray disc with a full concert from the classic 1974 lineup: Ruth Underwood, George Duke, Napoleon Murphy Brock. It's awesome. It's a fantastic release. Since it's the 50th anniversary of this groundbreaking album, there is a new box set release that you should check out. It just came out. It's a 58-track, 5-disc, super deluxe version with outtakes, alternate edits, 2024 mixes, and unedited bonus Vaultmeisters, plus a previously unreleased complete show recorded in Rotterdam, Amsterdam. The Blu-ray disc contains new surround sound and Dolby Atmos mixes of the album, plus 2 bonus surround tracks from the vault. And no, this video is not sponsored in any way, except for the excellent members of Club Weird, who contribute $3 a month to support the site by clicking the join button underneath the YouTube player. Thank you, Club Weird, for making this all possible. Anyway, this is an awesome box set. Like I said, it's got 5 discs and a really nice booklet that comes with it. It's got an article by David Frick. It's got a whole bunch of notes from Ruth Underwood, some new photos, detailed album artwork. It's awesome. And what's cool is, if you're into this kind of thing, it's got the visuals from the actual original tape recordings. You know, the boxes that contained the one-size-fits-all multitracks. Very cool. And some photos of Frank. Now, if the box set is out of reach for you, there are multiple versions of it available on Zappa.com. And you can even stream a whole bunch of the one-size-fits-all tracks on Spotify and probably the other major services. I just happened to see it on Spotify. And it's just really cool because you get to hear, like, there's Evelyn the Modified Dog track where Frank and George are working out the vocals and the piano and how to sync them. And Frank's like, okay, this is where you do this descending piano lick. And George is like, oh, okay, yeah. So it's cool. You get to hear like early versions of songs and see kind of how Frank was working. I think it's a really cool insight if you're into those kinds of details. I'm not typically a box set person, but there's a lot of really interesting material in this one. So check it out if that interests you. All right, now I will shut up and get to the interview with Joe Travers, where we just celebrate how great this album is. And since Joe has access to all the multi-tracks, he shares a little bit about what Frank was doing, how he worked, and lots of cool studio insider stuff. Enjoy. We have Joe Travers with us, and Joe is the Vaultmeister. He is the guy responsible for everything in the Zappa vaults. And Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Very welcome.
Yeah, so I have a few questions pre-planned for you, and then I thought we could just, have a conversation. But the first thing is, I feel like you're starting a bit of a religious war in a comment that I read in the email, that this is the second best sounding Frank Zappa album.
Yeah.
How could that be? What is the first, and why is that better than One Size Fits All?
Well, I think that Joe's Garage probably wins the award for the best sounding album in Frank's career. I remember vividly when we decided that we were going to do DSD technology when we were doing the 2012 remasters for the catalog. We were getting ready to revamp the entire catalog for the first time ever, and it was like a dream come true for me because it needed to be done so badly, and the opportunity finally came, and when it did, uh, we got together with a man named Gus Skinnis, who is involved with direct stream digital at the time, DSD technology. And so he came out from where he lived and brought up a really beautiful rig. I remember it being like a Meitner converter maybe, and or something, or amplifiers and converters and a whole system, and it was really something else. And we hooked up all of our tape machines to it, and for a period of, I believe, a week or so, we transferred every single analog master from Frank's catalog, everyone. And I can remember vividly two times when 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 Gus and I were sitting there listening to the music coming off tape. Not a lot of people get that opportunity, right? So we're sitting in, Frank's studio, and we're listening to the signal coming back at us from tape as we're capturing it. And we were just shaking our heads at how unbelievable it sounded in there. And for the people that want to know, we were listening through, a Neve console, through his thing or whatever, and we had Genelex, and a big sub, so we were just kind of cranking those and just filling the studio with that. And man, the sound was nuts coming from the Joe's Garage tapes and from the one size fits all tapes. Like when the first Sofa on side one came through, we were blown away. I had to literally stop. I had to call Gail and tell her to come downstairs and just like, you need to listen to how unbelievable this sounds in here. And it was so beautiful to be able to experience that. And so like I said, I vividly remember those two records really hitting us hard sonically. Just how well they sounded. And so, yeah, in my opinion, having that kind of close relationship with all the master tapes, I really strongly feel like Joe's Garage is up there as the number one, and One Size Fits All is riding right underneath it.
That's awesome. Actually, the bass line, that little bass break in Sofa, that is the line that made me a Zappa convert. I remember distinctly, like I grew up hearing Zappa, early Zappa records, like starting with Freak Out and We're Only In It For The Money. And I thought, okay, there's some good songs on here. And I was a little kid, I just thought I like the songs. But then a friend of mine played me One Size Fits All. We were camping and he had a Discman and a good pair of headphones. And he goes, just listen to this. And he cranked it. And I had just never heard anything like it. And when that bass line comes up, my friend looks at me and he goes,
Yeah.
and I was complete. That was like the most captivating musical moment. It was a total Zappa trigger for me. And I still,
George Duke on the Moog.
Incredible. I still
That's
have my CD, the Ryko disc, and it's broken because I used to take it to high school every day in my backpack. So, this album means so much to me. This is a pretty old version of it, but I think it's like such a special record, and it's 50 years since the original came out. What is it to you that makes this album, stand out? Why is it special to people?
I think it's because the stuff is accessible. I think there's a lot of like what would have gone on to be standards for Frank, Inca Roads and Florentine Pogan and Andy. I mean, those songs were still being played live by Frank even on his last tour. And I think a lot of the reasons that Apostrophe and Overnight Sensation are so successful and gateways for so many people to enter, Frank's world, I think all of that applies to One Size Fits All as well. It's that period, it's that band, and One Size Fits All sonically was the first time that Frank had 24 tracks available to him. And so, the layers are there, the sound quality is there, the material is there, the sense of humor is there, the listenability, if that's a word, listenability, I don't know, however you want to say that. The accessibility to the material is there, and I think that it's never a bad idea to recommend One Size Fits All to somebody that asks the question, where do I start? I mean, obviously, Apostrophe is an amazing entry, but One Size Fits All absolutely could serve that purpose as well.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that you've heard the multi-track recordings, like the original 24
Mhm.
track, each track by track. Have you taken the time to give a detailed listen?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tell us about that. Like what are we not hearing? Like there's I think Mike Keneally told me a joke where Frank was like twirling his mustache recording something, and someone told him no one's ever going to hear that, and he goes, I know, like that was basically for him. So I'm sure like
Oh,
hearing these multi-tracks, you've heard some special little details. I'd love to hear about your experience with that.
yeah. Sometimes there's alternate guitar solos. Sometimes there's alternate vocal takes. And I'm not just saying that for One Size Fits All. I'm just saying on the whole, like what you run into. Sometimes you hear parts that were recorded that didn't make the final mix for whatever reason. If Frank had the capacity, he would take advantage of it. And as we know, he was a pioneer in the studio, so he was always searching for things. Ideas were flying by at a rapid pace, and he was capturing them all. And so it is pretty interesting sometimes when you listen to, like, for instance, some of the remixes of things that he did in his lifetime, like albums like Man from Utopia or Have I Offended Someone, or some of the stuff that he was remixing for CD later on in his career. That's a perfect example of being able to hear source material that you didn't originally hear in the first issues. So you do run across things like that a lot. So it's always fun. It's always a discovery.
Yeah, I think this album, I was just listening to it in greater detail. I have the transcription book here, and even just the riff from Inca Roads, it's not da 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 da, it's da 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 da. Like the third note is the same as the first two, but most people I see, and even myself playing it kind of more like a pentatonic riff. And then I was like, I need to pay closer attention. So I just listened to this album, and I was hearing new layers of guitars and vocals and jokes. And reading the lyrics, he's included so many of the little details that you might not even notice. So I'm curious, like, we have this, since it's the 50th anniversary, there's this new release coming out. And I think I saw something like 75% of the material on this new release is unreleased from this era. Is it
Mm.
new music? Tell us what's coming out.
Some of it is well, most of it is different mixes, different periods of the workflow. So these types of releases, whenever you're including rough mixes or work mixes or things like that, it gives you an insight on how the stuff came together. So you hear the different periods of the tracks coming together and forming the master. And in other instances, you'll hear like earlier versions of the songs with different lyrics and different arrangements before it became what it became. Obviously, there's a track on this new box called Bitch, 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 and that turned into something else. And I won't spoil the surprise, but it's a really beautiful rehearsal recording that I found. It's just crazy how that stuff appears. And then Something Anything ended up becoming Andy, and there was a whole different, arrangement and vocal approach when it was something anything as to what it ended up turning out to be. And Inca Roads, as we know, as well as Florentine Pogan, were songs that started out a certain way and always seemed to be a vehicle for Frank to constantly change and morph and add and improve and just always keep it fresh. I mean, if you look at the lineage between when Inca Road started in 73 and where it was in 1988, there were so many amazing changes and stuff that happened throughout all the years, kind of like folklore and within the band, you know. And so all these types of things get brought to light in the anniversary box because you get to hear all these works in progress, so to speak, that expose the workflow of the composer and also how the stuff came together.
I was curious about, well, you mentioned Frank sonically in the studio. He's innovating, he's trying new things, he's exploring, experimenting, ideas coming left and right. But running a 24 track studio, it ain't no small thing in 1974. That's pretty new technology. How do you know much about how he learned about engineering, mixing, and then just kind of the side B to that question is the seamlessness where he blends, let's say, the Inca Roads solo. If I didn't have the liner notes and if I didn't read it, I would have no idea that was a live recording in Helsinki, Finland, from months, perhaps a year prior, when I hear it in the song Inca Roads. So like, how is he doing this? Because not only was that very advanced, but it didn't seem like Frank had a background in, there was no audio engineering school or conservatory for recording arts and sciences,
Well, okay, so there's a lot to answer in
Yep.
this. So let's not forget, remind me about the seamlessness Inca Road in it by the
I will.
time I'm finished speaking.
I will.
But Frank was obviously extremely gifted and super, super intelligent and super talented and had huge ears. And he was cutting his teeth on multi-track recording in 1964 when he took over Paul Buff's studio in Cucamonga. He had that whole entire place and that and all that equipment to himself, and so he was experimenting and doing all that stuff. The only person that was doing that was Les Paul. In the industry there was only 3-track, and 4-track was coming right around the corner, if not just arriving, and he was doing 5-track on a like a homemade system. So he had the knack of it under his belt. He was already a producer, he was already a composer, he knew what he wanted to hear in the studio. And by the time One Size Fits All happened, 24 tracks are now being made available. We're coming from 16, and he's at the record plant. The basic tracks were basically done on a lot of the stuff at Caribou Studios, which was a famous studio. And then very quickly after those sessions were over, he moved right after the holidays in early January 75, moved to the record plant. And it was there that he basically had a team of people that were working with him that were super, super talented also. You had Carrie McNabb, who he had been working with for a few years now at this point. And then you had a guy named Michael Bronstein, who was a guy who was working at the record plant, who kind of fell into Frank's orbit. And then there was another guy named Davey Moore, who was also working at the record plant, who befriended Frank because he was hearing the sessions on the other side of the door and loved what he was hearing. And so he basically met Frank getting a coffee in the lounge and started reciting his lyrics. And Frank's like, "How do you know that?" And he said, "Well, I'm hearing it in the other room. It sounds great." So all of a sudden now you have these 3 engineers along with Frank that are working feverishly for a 4-month period, I believe, on mixes. And when Frank wasn't in the studio, those guys were, and they were trying all sorts of different things and playing it for Frank when he would come in, and he would say, no, let's do this, whatever. So you had all these different talents and mind and energy and mindsets happening at once. And by the way, there was more than one record being made at this point.
Right.
There was so much material that was recorded between the Caribou sessions and the Record Plant sessions that stuff ended up obviously just sitting until it was time. And of course, the time came for a few tracks on Bongo Fury. The time came for Sleep Dirt and Studio Tan. So all that stuff was being done at the same time. Gregory Peccary was a massive undertaking. And it's just incredible to think about the amount of material that was being worked on in such a short period of time in that window in early 75, with all four of those guys just grinding it out. So that's how that got done. That's how, the pace was pretty intense, and everybody was loving what they were doing because the stuff was so great. And so how could you not be caught up in the moment? And man, that must have been so fun for those guys. But anyway, as far as the Inca Roads seamless edit, I mean, again, it's a testament to Frank's genius, how sonically he's in tune to what is happening. Rhythmically, he's in tune to what's happening. And as we know, if you listen to things like the You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore series, which is an extension of a concept called impossible concerts, which means it's completely impossible for these things to have happened in our lifetime, but it does in the studio because he's cutting seamlessly between different venues, different years, different bands, different periods, all this stuff sonically talking to each other seamlessly and working. That's Frank's genius. And so Inca Roads is just another example of that.
Was he insisting on perhaps the same microphones, drums, placement? Like, that's the thing. You can kind of mimic guitar amp sounds pretty closely with EQ, similar mics, similar if he's playing the same guitar or whatever. But the drums and the bass, they're a lot harder to just kind of not be distracting if you're suddenly inserting another performance from some completely other time in a completely other place, especially if, what I hear is true. If the Caribou recordings were at 8,000 feet elevation, affecting instruments, affecting hardware, affecting people's performances. So to me, it's just kind of mind boggling engineering on the road. Do you know if he was so like that particular, like we're going to use this mic on the snare and the same mic in the studio, or he just figured out a way to make it just sound great through tape edits?
In the case of the Inca Roads thing, I doubt very highly, although he was touring with his own equipment by then. So it is possible that his preferences for mics and all that kind of stuff was already in place by then. But I find it could be true that there was, differences in microphones, considering it's a live recording in Finland as opposed to, the stuff that happened to KCET.
Right.
And those were the two worlds that were being brought together. But if you listen really closely, you'll hear that when it does make the transition at the beginning into Helsinki, there's this beautiful keyboard pad that is happening over that. And, you hear it. It's very light in the master mix, but in the 50th anniversary, you get to hear that a little louder in some of the other alternate mixes, the work mixes and stuff. And so subconsciously, those types of things that are being layered in help with those sonic transitions. It kind of guides you through it. And so, again, super, super crafty, right? And just, right in tune with, making that sound like it's just all one performance.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Well, and another amazing thing, I can't remember if it was San Bernardino or Inca Roads, maybe it was Florentine Pogan, but there's a part where he's like strumming very clean electric guitar, just downstrokes, maybe like kind of on downbeat, and the whole thing is in an odd rhythm, but all of these chords, you can barely hear them, and there's stuff mixed way back. There's stuff mixed, in the middle. There's stuff mixed very in your face. And there's so much complexity going on, even in I think it was Inca Roads where Ruth's got, you know, so you have all of this stuff going on. It's not just that Frank is writing, arranging, and producing, but the mixes are truly stellar. Like the mix engineering is unbelievable. And it made me wonder, like when you said, well, there's alternate takes, there can be, you know, things that didn't make it to the record. Have, tell me, like, what did you discover? You know, was there more other than just alternates? Like, was there more stuff where you're like, I can't believe he didn't include this, or, you know, any new discoveries?
On this particular box, I didn't really do a ton of like remixes from the multi-track
Hmm.
on the master versions because there were so many things that I found that Frank had done himself in the studio that revealed the things that I probably would have revealed had I spent the time in the studio with an engineer
Mm.
remixing some of these things. So it was kind of done. But, you know, I'll give you an example of something that I didn't find in a Frank mix that we remixed and made available, and that was Sal Marquez's vocal take on Inca Roads on the Overnight Sensation box. I
Mm.
mean, nobody knew that that existed, and when I found that on the on the master, I thought, oh my god, that's awesome, and it's a good take. So, and there was no way that that was mixed. It wasn't mixed by Frank at all. So I just said, okay, well, we have to do that because that's an example of something so revealing from the masters that people would love to hear that nobody knew existed. And so there you go.
That's awesome. You know, I had heard that Frank spent, or maybe I read it in an interview, 10 to 14 hours a day for 4 months. So that was it 4 albums you're talking about? Sleep Dirt, Studio Tan, Bongo Fury, and One Size Fits All at the same time.
Yes. Yeah, all that stuff was being worked on at the same time.
That's
Yep.
incredible.
Yep.
Um, and then we've got the sort of conceptual continuity thing going on with the sofa. One size fits all is an anagram, or not an anagram, it's just a jumbling of the letters SOFA. The sofa is on various album covers or artworks. You know, what are some of the sort of continuity things for, let's say there's the advanced listener who might have heard this album 20, 30 times already. What's new for them, you know, in this set, other than, you know, we've got new mixes. What would you point out? Like, be sure to pay attention to this.
Oh man, I think a lot of the stuff that's included speaks for itself. I think it's really great that we have some historical live performances of some of these tracks, you know, that were recorded before they even got into the studio. Especially the stuff that was done in Gothenburg, Sweden, which is Ralph Stuffs His Shoes and Pajama People,
Mm.
I think. So, I mean, yeah, I think it's all there. I think that anybody who is a lifer, but anybody who just enjoys one size fits all, there is just so many things that they will discover on this box because that's the whole point is to give people the things in the vault that we would have never thought we would ever get the chance to hear that are so worthy and so revealing and so historical. I mean, all of the anniversary box sets that we do is coming from that angle. So, you know, if anybody is looking for clues to the overall, you know, the overall output, it's all in there for them to discover.
That's fantastic. You know, I got I'm trying to see if I can see it. Cheaper Than Cheap. This
Oh,
just came out. This
yes, it
thing
did.
is so good, and the whole concert that was undiscovered. You know, if people aren't aware about this set, let's just take a few seconds to tell them about it.
Sure. I mean, Frank was hell bent on getting a television special under his belt. And the roots of that started in December 73 with the famous Roxy performances. You know, those were shot on film. And there was going to be some things that were going to happen from that. But unfortunately, he ran into major technical difficulties due to the module that was keeping the audio and the film in sync went down right before the downbeat of the first show. And so, unfortunately, the stuff was shot wild, as they say in the trade. And
Ah.
in Frank's lifetime, there was no way to sync the stuff up properly because there wasn't any digital type workstations at the time. So he was basically screwed. And then he said, "Okay, well, we're going to do it again." And they did it again, and the same thing happened. Only this time it was a video truck instead of shooting on film. And the connection that was supposed to be made between the video truck and the audio truck wasn't made. And it was like a big oops, uh-oh. And unfortunately, he ran into the same issues. And so, literally 2 months later, in August of '74, he finally did get the shoot that he needed when they came into the KCET studios and filmed those obviously famous performances that have been a part of the Dub Room special and/or a token of his extreme, if you've ever seen those two things. But this was um, something that Frank was hopeful about. I think that unfortunately, due to the circumstances, it was like, okay, we tried that. It didn't work out so well, but we're moving on. And, there was some things against him. I mean, it was incredibly hot in the studio when they recorded that. They were there all day and all night. They brought in the tour gear, which was, the lights with the massive gels and a small audience, and they didn't have a set list. Frank was just calling stuff, and there was. But the thing is that there were some things when you watch Cheaper Than Cheap, you can see that Frank definitely had produced some pretty cool ideas. One of which is to go into his art studio and have Cal and Meatball and Bruce Bickford all in there doing what they do, and he wanted to show off what was happening there. And then, of course, the opening sequence when he was in the recording truck and then going into the video truck and then walking in to the place, and there everybody is. So there was thought behind. You can see that there was thought behind some of the sequences that were caught, and I'm sure Frank was behind all of it. But unfortunately, the stuff sat in the vault for 50 years and went undiscovered for a very long time. And then finally, when we were able to have the budget to get the stuff transferred and see what the hell was going on with all this footage, we realized how strong of a possibility there was for Cheaper Than Cheap. And now here we are. It's out. It's done. It's been a long time coming, but I believe it's a worthy inclusion in the catalog. It's pretty great.
Yeah, and a few of us were lucky enough to catch the limited edition YouTube stream of the full concert, and I mean, it's just fantastic. But yeah, buy the collection because there's a Blu-ray and then what is it, 3 CDs in here? Is that the
I think it's 2 CDs and a
2 CDs?
Blu-ray, and yeah, the Blu-ray has a little bit of extra material on there, and everything that was shown on the YouTube stream is on the Blu-ray. So, yeah.
And one last question that I've got for you. I had no idea that One Size Fits All featured fretless guitar. I didn't know that Frank owned a fretless guitar. And I don't consider myself like a super Zappa nerd, I'm not a deep detail aficionado. Maybe that's public knowledge, but I didn't know. And I'd love to know, like, what do you know about these fretless guitar performances and where can we hear more of Frank playing fretless?
Yeah. The two tracks that come to mind that right off the top of my head is San Bernardino on
Mhm.
One Size Fits All, and then also Down in the Dew, which was a track that started in '72 and then was overdubbed later, and that song is available on the Apostrophe 40th anniversary and also on Leather. You'll find Down in Dew, I believe. And there's a lot of fretless going on that song. And there's an interview out there where Frank talks about the fretless applications in his catalog and where he got it and what it was like playing it and adapting to it and all that stuff. So I know that you'll be able to find that out there if you dig far enough in the internet.
I think I have it here. It's an interview with Steve Rosen from Guitar Player Magazine,
Well, that makes sense. Yep.
January
Yep.
1977. And he says the thing that sounds like a slide guitar on The Torture Never Stops is actually a fretless.
Oh, there you go.
It's also on San Bernardino and Can't Afford No Shoes.
Oh, nice.
It's different than a regular guitar. You don't push the strings to bend them. You move them back and forth like a violin type vibrato, which is a funny movement to get used to, but you can play bar chords on it. It's fun.
Yeah. Well, it is a cool sound for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Frank just knew how to get those really great, plucky, twangy guitar sounds. And I think he commented on the picking on the, in the Inca Roads solo, picking on the fretboard as sounding like do you remember what he said? A Bulgarian bagpipe sound.
Oh, sure. Well, that's that technique, I believe, where he's taking the pick and he's bouncing it back and forth on the
Yep.
string on the neck, which is one of his, really cool signature things that he liked to implement. And he did it so much
Yeah.
throughout his career, that trick.
Yep.
And it's really effective. And the Inca Roads solo is that might even be the first instance where we hear him do that, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, he always had really cool things. In '88, he pulled out a cool trick where he would take his middle, like this finger right here, and he would go upside down and he would do this kind of like back and forth on the lower strings. And you can hear that on the solo to Any Kind of Pain, I believe, on Broadway the Hard Way. But all these cool things, like, he had these like whole tone scales that he was in love with during the '84 tour that he played a lot of. There's just like all these different like signposts in his guitar excursions and development through the years. You always hear these because he was just constantly, trying to evolve all the time. It was great.
Yep. I love it. And when he played with a quarter, instead of a guitar pick, it's great.
Yeah, and he played with a metal pick in '84, and I remember that was, I think, maybe, I can't remember why he switched to a metal pick. I think there's an interview where he talks about that. There was another famous guitar player that used a metal pick, and I don't think it's Brian May, although it could have been, Brian May used a Penzance. I forget what it's called. I'm sorry. I people out there will know immediately. It's make up some kind of British coin or whatever. I don't know. But anyway, that metallic kind of attack, inspired Frank. And yeah, in '84 he was using a metal pick, and I don't know if that continued into '88. But yeah, man, just awesome. I mean, Frank on guitar is one of the greatest things in the world. I mean, there's nobody that sounds like him. He was so inventive with it and had his own personal voice with it, and he stands out with all the greats.
Yep. Completely agree. So when does this new 50th anniversary set come out? Because I think Mikey Mesker, who did the design work, said he was waiting on the first physical copies to arrive. So
Oh yeah. I believe I heard the word on the street is that if you pre-order it through certain channels, be it the Zappa store or the UDiscover store, that it's actually shipping in a few days, which would mean the beginning of August. But I think that store-wide and worldwide, if you want to buy it on Amazon or get it at your local record store, you're going to have to wait until late September. So I think like the 24th of September or something like that.
okay, cool.
So if you're the hardcore and if you have the funds, you can get it, pre-order it now, and it'll get shipped or way earlier.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And finally, a question that I don't know if I'll include or not, just based on your answer, but has it been a positive move? Like, I think for fans, it's clear we have more material now, but the acquisition of the Zappa Family Trust, like, has that been a net positive for the Vault?
Yeah. Well, yes. The overall answer is yes, and the overall answer started being yes in 2012 because Universal's involvement with the Zappa family has opened up so many avenues for the catalog to thrive. And I couldn't be more happier that every single record is sounding the best that it can, and they're all together in one place instead of spread out over different labels like it was for so long. And and once Amit took over, and after Gail passed, and once Amit took over, the two of us really started taking advantage of the opportunities for the releases. In other words, we had more opportunities from Universal to release more product, if you want to call it that, or just more great things. And so we started churning out a lot more material at a more rapid rate. And for me, that was a dream come true because it kept me very busy, and I was able to, compile all of these great things that I had been finding in the vault for so many years. I spent so many years excavating and discovering and preserving, and so all of the findings that I had done for so long were finally getting a chance to be compiled and brought to the public, and I was very excited about that. Once the acquisition happened and now Universal owns everything, there's obviously the vault is now being run by other people. The hands-on work, in other words. I was the person that was doing the hands-on work before. I'm now not doing that, although I am still involved. But it's just like any other artist that's owned by Universal. They're the people that are in charge now, and so that's a little different for me. I do miss being able to just kind of like come and go as I please and pick whatever I want, and just keep discovering, keep on preserving, at my own pace for the family. I truly, truly miss that. But that doesn't mean that I'm still not getting those opportunities. It's just that it's just a different modus operandi now that we're working with a corporation. So but the good news is that Universal still wants me around, and that is that makes all the difference for me. I'm just so glad that I am appreciated and still in demand with the company to do these things for the people, because I love what I do. I love Frank Zappa, and I couldn't imagine doing anything else other than what I do. And so I'm so grateful and blessed that I am still getting the opportunity to do this stuff.
Does that mean there's more coming?
Oh gosh, yes.
More 50th anniversary releases?
All sorts of stuff. All
Awesome.
sorts of stuff. The potential, not just for anniversary releases. I mean, obviously we're in the thick of it now with 50th anniversaries. If you think about what we've done over the past 4 or 5 years, especially with like the 73, 74 era, there was so many amazing opportunities to celebrate records that have been seminal for Frank. They're just massive. They're huge. And so it's a no-brainer to put these records on a pedestal and say, hey, these records are 50 years old and these affected so many people for such a long time. And it's great to bring them to light, possibly for a new generation, and to keep that legacy thriving for those records. And so that's a good thing. But we're moving on now. We're moving on now into 75, 76. Things are changing. And so our opportunities for anniversary releases will still be there, but it's not like we're only doing that. We're definitely throwing in other things. Now, remember, we're dealing with a corporation who is allowing us to do, on the whole, an average of 2, possibly 3 major releases a year. And that's a lot, considering most catalog artists. If you look at most catalog artists, we're lucky if we get 1 thing a year. If you look at Miles, Hendrix, Elvis, I can keep going. We're lucky if we get 1 thing a year from those people, if at all. And we're doing an average of 2 to 3 major things a year. And so, that's just, it's so different. That's not how it normally is. And so I'm so glad that Universal is interested in doing and producing that many things for this artist, and keeping the fans engaged, and giving us the opportunity to share all of this beautiful stuff that we're finding in the vault. I mean, it's an amazing time to be a Frank Zappa fan right now, man, because I'm telling you, I remember what it was like 30 years ago. I remember what was going on then. And the fact that we are this far in, doing what we do it's amazing. It really is.
Joe, this was fantastic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I hope I didn't ramble too much, Anthony.
You know what? That's always the best thing to hear. When the guest is like, I just talked so much, I'm like, that means I did my job and people get to hear more from you. I mean, you're a
Well,
star, man.
another. Oh my gosh, thank you. Another thing that should be mentioned as far as this anniversary box set is concerned for One Size Fits All is the Blu-ray, because man, the Atmos mixes and the stuff that is on there, the 2 videos and the 6-channel mix, which is something that Frank himself worked on in surround. All that stuff is like major vault specialties, really. I mean, the fact that we were able to go back and re-edit the 2 songs, Inca and Florentine, that are on One Size Fits All, and re-edit them for the first time since Frank did it back in '74. It's huge. And the Atmos mixes, you want to talk about revealing. It's great to hear them spread out. Everything just kind of spread out and sounding so great. And so the Blu-ray is really special, and that's another thing that that we've been really grateful for Universal for, is the fact that they are still interested in pushing that dynamic, pushing surround music and supporting Atmos, and so that's cool too.